Here's what you're about to discover: the leadership question that no one wants to answer, and why avoiding it costs your organization millions of dollars. It also is costing you. We're also going to look at hidden patterns that stall us, if you will, increase our repeated mistakes because of this, and also causes reactive leadership. We're going to dive into what joy really means, joy journey options you choose, and why missing one link can create a major change in your leadership and in who you are and how you show up. I'm also going to give you a practical tool that's going to help you shift from avoidance to personal agency in real time. And then we're going to end with a return on your investment, which is your precious time, and that is self-leadership. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's dive deep. What if your next leadership breakthrough was simply a choice? Is that possible? Is it possible that a challenge for you, if you're ready? I'm only speaking to leaders who are ready. What we are going to look at is how to stop avoiding and start leading. Now, do you have situations that you've avoided? I know I have. I've worked with people and they say that they want better engagement, they want a positive, aligned culture, and they want sustainable performance because, of course, we want to get things done, right? But what doesn't make sense is why leaders avoid this one conversation that would make all of the difference. Do you know what it is? Take a moment. Boom. When the moment arrives to actually lead, which means setting boundaries, it could mean having a difficult conversation, it could mean owning the outcome, you hesitate. You hesitate. Why? Why does that happen? Why do really good leaders hesitate when there's a difficult situation to handle? It's not because there's a lack of skill, it's because choice activates responsibility. That's right. And responsibility removes excuses. How many times have you heard an excuse? I have many of times. So the leadership question no one wants to answer is, ready for it? Where in your leadership are you avoiding the decision that would change everything? I'm not just talking about educational leadership. I'm talking about leadership in general. Indecision costs Fortune 500 companies up to 250 million annually in lost productivity. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine what indecision is costing you? And what's the root cause? Leadership avoidance. The root cause is leadership avoidance. And what is leadership avoidance? It's the unconscious pattern of delayed choice. And you know what? That's what Joy Journey Options You Choose is designed to interrupt. Let's interrupt. But before we get there, let's look at what are some of the cost of avoidance. So when leaders delay their choices, organizations pay a price in ways that compound daily. But not only the organization, you as an individual are paying a price too. Here's some of the costs. Decisions get delayed, leadership turns reactive, and patterns get repeated. What that looks like in a compound effect of avoidance, delayed decisions means missed opportunities. And that puts an organization or you at a competitive disadvantage. Reactive leadership. The compound effect of that avoidance creates crisis culture. And what does that mean? It means there's an innovation stagnation. We're going to dive a little bit deeper in that so that it makes even more clear. That way, there's even more clarity in that understanding. And another compound effect of avoidance is repeated patterns. Mm, we've all been in situations where we have a team, and sometimes individuals in our team can frustrate us. And even worse, people quit and they leave. And that means that there's a team talent loss. So the bottom line is leadership avoidance actively erodes organizational health and market position. What does leadership avoidance do to you? When you're avoiding something, what does it specifically do for you? Let's see what it does in education, because I come from education. That's my background. In education, we see decisions stalled. What does that mean? Critical decisions get delayed. There's bottlenecks up in teams when things are supposed to happen. It just doesn't happen. And it specifically looks like delayed support. If you're an educator or you're an administrator in education, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Curriculum decisions delayed semester after semester means what? You don't have materials, you don't have supplies, and that means that students are not making sufficient student achievement. That is one way that avoidance affects education. Let's look at another one. Leadership turns reactive. Have you seen this before? This is what it looks like in education. How many of you are dealing with enrollment challenges? Yes, it's happening all over the US. And instead of having a strategic pivot, it's a temporary fix. And that's what leadership turning reactive looks like in education because of avoidance. Now, in education, when we talk about patterns repeating, meaning the same challenges keep coming up again and again, what does it look like? It looks like faculty conflicts unaddressed. It looks like toxic teams. Ugh. Have you been there? Have you seen that? Have you done that? Yeah. Well, here's one of the worst case scenarios of this avoidance. Underneath all of it, morale erodes. Yeah, you've seen it. You might even be a part of it. The Gallup 2024 State of Global Workplace did a report, and it found that 21% of employees globally are experiencing engagement stagnation and their well-being is declining. You see, oftentimes we have what is the reference to the rat race. Everybody's just trying to do more, be more, and just keep doing, 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 doing. But that's not fixing the problems. These problems, decrease morale, leadership avoidance, are actually creating outcomes that are costing millions of dollars. And the millions of dollars are this. When there's an avoidance, a leadership avoidance of making decisions and things like that, productivity is decreased. It's a stagnation. So Slack 2023 found something, and the hidden signal was when leaders avoid difficult conversations and decisions, they inadvertently signal trust. Now, I know you've seen it perhaps in your organization where, you know, the saying where they say one bad apple spoils the basket? Have you ever been on a team where an individual on your team is just consistently negative and is pulling down the team morale, pulling down and making the culture negative? Well, if a leader does not address those behaviors, then the team begins to distrust the leader and their leadership capabilities. But we have a joy practice that could actually improve that. And what that looks like is choosing transparency and accountability. It's a core joy practice and it rebuilds foundation. It means you're not afraid of addressing problems. It means that you're not afraid of telling the truth. We're not talking about harshness. We're talking about with dignity and respect. But you're not afraid. You have those difficult conversations because it's important for the individuals that are involved in the overall well-being of an organization. And when trust declines, there was another study in 2024 from Global Human Capital Trends. It reported that trust at the top of an organization was a major issue. And they talked about how there were barriers to the progress. And what is the root cause of declined trust? Internal constraints that often stem from leadership avoidance patterns. It's that leader that is unwilling to address truth in difficult situations. And what is a joy solution? When leaders practice joy, consciously choosing their responses, they model the agency, personal agency, that rebuilds organizational trust. You see, when we can trust someone that is leading us, then our morale increases because we know what to expect and boundaries are clear. What's the worst case scenario of avoidance? Joy gets deferred. And I think that's happening a lot right now in organizations. There just isn't any joy because joy is not something that you wait for. It's something that you practice every single day. And what is joy? Joy is journey, options, you choose. It's more than a feeling. It's about your personal agency, your free will. And it begins with you and your own self-leadership. It's fundamental that you recognize your own power, that you have choice. Do you believe that? Do you believe that you have power? Do you believe that you have choice? And do you know that you have free will? Because you do. Let's recap. The cost of leadership avoidance results in stalled decisions. This is what leadership avoidance looks like. It looks like stalled decisions, reactive leadership, and negative repeated patterns. And because of these three items, what happens? Productivity is stagnant and trust declines. And it results in a critical organizational challenge, and that is deferred joy. We see that all the time. I don't know, do you work for an organization where you feel like there's joy? I don't know, but it's something to consider. We talked about joy stands for journey, options, you choose. It represents empowerment. Why? Because you are empowered, because you have free will, because you have voice. And joy represents the moment that comes from decisive, intentional action and purposeful alignment. That means that when you realize that you have joy, it is internal, journey, options, you choose, meaning I get to choose. I can exert my free will and my power in my decision making, and I can be intentional about the actions, the behaviors. And if remember, I always start from spirit, mind, heart, and body, if I'm intentional about all of those domains and I'm purposeful in making sure that everything that I do is in alignment with my purpose and my values, then I'm exerting joy, then I am embodying joy. When choices are avoided, leaders aren't just delaying decisions, they are actually actively postponing their very agency and fulfillment that propels an organization and an individual forward. This is visually what it looks like. Avoidance leads to delayed choices. Delayed choices is a deferred act of personal agency, resulting in deferred joy. Is that making sense? The beautiful part is that there's always comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes not so quiet, when not choosing costs more than choosing. Now I know that not choosing is actually a choice, but when we decide to actively choose, that's the moment where real self-leadership lives or dies. Yeah, lives or dies. You choose. What if you could recognize that moment, that one moment before it becomes a crisis? What if? There's a better way. And you know what? It's not a framework. It's not a strategy. It's way more simple and way more profound. It's recognizing the one thing that you've always had, and that is power, the power to choose. There it is, your free will, joy, journey options, you choose. Let's look at a solution. So I've put it out pretty easily on what joy means. And remember, we're looking at moving from avoidance to agency. Agency meaning your free will and the exertion of your personal power. That's what personal agency is. That's what your free will is. And that's what joy is. When you claim your personal agency, responsibility stops feeling like pressure and it starts becoming power. That's the foundation of the joy mindset because you come to embody joy and understand that it's your journey. You have options and you get to choose. Joy requires awareness. Joy requires the exertion of your personal agency and intentional choice. Oh, here's the hard part. When leaders understand their personal agency and free will, there's a shift. And remember, I talked about it either lives or dies. This is what I mean. Imagine that you are leading with clarity instead of reactivity. You see, that takes a pause. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you start screaming and you have a fit. A student is losing their cool and you raise your voice. That's a reaction. There's a better way, and it's a response that's not reactive, but purposeful and intentional. Imagine teams that take initiative without waiting to be motivated. That would be cool. And imagine decisions that are made with confidence instead of hesitation. And I'm speaking directly to you because leadership starts within. We are the first leader that we lead because it is self-leadership. Now, what changes when leaders choose joy? One, awareness replaces autopilot. This is really important, and I've done a couple videos on what autopilot behavior looks like and what autopilot means. When joy is chosen, ownership also replaces blame. We can't blame people for all of our badness and all of our not so good stuff. We we began to really take ownership for ourselves and for our power, our free will, and our personal agency. And lastly, when leaders choose joy, there's an alignment that replaces exhaustion. So your actions reflect your values and you create sustainable energy. What that means is that you have very clear boundaries and you're not working 24/7. Why? Because you understand holistic wellness. Holistic wellness, spirit, mind, heart, body, connection. You get it. And so you create the boundaries and the practices and the actions that are holistically caring for you. That is crucial. Joy is something you practice daily. It's something you choose. It's not a fleeting emotion. And here is your core insight, the joy jewel awareness. I love this jewel. This is how awareness of avoidance behaviors changes your leadership, self-leadership to start with. So before you have awareness, there's reactive patterns, there's blame, defensiveness. It's his fault. It's her fault. This is happening because, decisions are avoided and energy is depleted. After using the joy jewel awareness, you have the opportunity to make intentional choices, have curiosity, take ownership for your power and your decisions, and make them with clarity. And your energy is directed purposefully. You don't keep doing a million things because doing a million things is not in alignment with value that perhaps you may hold. This is why it's so important to understand what are your values, right? This shift is actually from a restricted mindset to an awakening mindset. And that is how the joy jewel awareness helps you to change your self leadership. The main shift is from unconscious reaction to conscious responses. That's where I talked about like not just being reactive, you're actually being purposeful in your behaviors, in your thoughts, in your decision making. And here's a tool. This is the tool that comes from choosing your responses. It's 3 steps, and this is leading yourself. Remember, I have a framework that's for lead. Lead is live your values, embrace resilience, activate wellness, and decide with intention. That's what lead means. That's what leading with joy means. And I have specific workshops on each of those letters. And I also have a workshop that goes over all of them together. But today, what we're going to use, because remember, we're moving from avoidance to exerting agency, to our personal agency. And the way you do this is threefold. One, just notice. Start with spirit. Are you connected? Are you taking time to meditate, to pray? Whatever works for you personally. Just notice. Mind. What are your thoughts? What are your scripts? What are your narratives? What are you telling yourself? Heart. How are you emotionally responding, reacting? What triggers are happening within you? And body. What behaviors are you exerting? Are you walking? Are you spending time on self-care? Are you getting the right nutrition? Just notice. It's a moment of awareness. 2, own your choice. If you are not taking care of yourself and walking, exercising, brushing your teeth, eating healthy, spending time in nature, whatever it is, take ownership for it. Don't blame other people for a lack of time. Don't blame other people for your health. Recognize your power within all domains. And 3, yield a better response. Choose actions that align with your values. Now, I'm not just lecturing, I am walking my talk. Let me give you an example. I don't have my thyroid anymore. And because I don't have my thyroid, my hormones are different. My chemical makeup is different. I also am past childbearing years. So that means that I no longer have a higher level of estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone. All of those chemical things that are happening within my body create responses, right? But because I know this, I notice this, I know this, I know my body, I know my being, I know who I am. I own my choice. My choice is to take care of me. And I'm very specific about what that means: spirit, mind, heart, body, because I'm yielding to a better response. And that better response means that every day I do some kind of daily action for my physical body to ensure that I am making more serotonins and I am making more endorphins, because my body operates better when I exercise. Now, I could blame my physical makeup. Oh, it's because I don't have a thyroid. Oh, it's because I'm getting old. All these complaints. But that's not going to yield a better response. So when we think about how this relates to leadership, self-leadership, organizations, think about it. How does it relate to you? And so we looked at lead yourself with 3 steps: just notice, own your choice, and yield to a better response. And if anyone was paying attention, JOY, joy, journey options you choose. There's an example down here about a leader and how a leader can handle critical feedback, because when we're in a leadership position, we can get feedback that doesn't sit well with us. How do we handle that feedback? And there's a way to do it. You pause, you identify your options, and you choose consciously. That's how just notice, own the choice, and yield a better response come into play when you're leading yourself and you're moving from avoidance to agency. Every moment presents options. Self-leadership begins with the choice you make, with the choice I make. Daily choices, there's some specific examples. How do you handle conflict? For example, when a conflict arises, do you avoid the conversation, or do you choose to address it directly with respect and dignity? Maybe a decision feels risky. Do you delay it indefinitely, or do you choose to gather specific data and set a decision deadline? These are opportunities on how you handle situations. Do you choose to avoid, or do you choose to exert your personal agency? I want to throw in here some information specifically about joy success coaching. And this is important because when you learn, when you increase your knowledge, your skills, your tools, and your strategies, you're going to amplify better results. And so if we were using the same 3-step, just notice, own the choice, yield a better response, because we're talking to leaders, right? What may that look like? So you're working with an individual and you're noticing that this individual is becoming frustrated and they're struggling with the situation. Okay. How do you support that person? You can use this same 3-step model to help that person gain clarity and increase their awareness. And as a leader, this means that you make intentional choices you create space for personal agency and for agency of others. Because when you're in a leadership, you're a steward of time, and you're a steward of finances, and you're a steward of supporting others' growth. And you interrupt avoidance and negative patterns in real time by exerting positive personal agency. Joy Success Coaching is a program that teaches intentionality for exponential results, because what we're looking at doing is inspiring intentional leaders, dismantling limiting beliefs, and cultivating trust and impact. We want to bring joy back into organizations. Joy is journey, options you choose. And Joy Coaching Certification equips individuals with tools to uncover hidden scripts that are intentional thought patterns that you may or may not even be aware that are there, behaviors, triggers within the heart, and body behaviors that are occurring. So we look specifically at how are you showing up, and how do you support yourself, self-leadership, to make a greater impact in your service to others. That's what Joy's Success Coaching does. And when your awareness increases and you choose to exert personal agency, how does that change you? When you fully embody joy and you understand the joy mindset, here are the changes, the actual outcomes that happen. You get clarity in your decision making. You learn to trust yourself. And you recognize that leadership starts within. And how does that show up? You practice joy daily, moment by moment. Joy is lived. It's not a mood. It's not a feeling and an emotion that comes and goes. It's not the same as happiness. Your free will and your personal agency is with you 24/7. Your free will doesn't go away. Your personal agency doesn't go away. It's yours to stay. It's a divine birthright gift. So for individuals, this means that life stops feeling stuck. Why? Because you realize that you have power. For coaches, this is where breakthrough happens, because you realize that you are a self leader and that you can help others to make change, to learn, and to grow. And self-leadership is where your alignment starts. This is where it starts, when you begin to recognize that you are an actual leader and you exert your personal agency. So, what's the first act of self-leadership? Remember, we're moving from avoidance to agency. It's awareness. Joy jewel awareness is the most critical act of self-leadership. It's your willingness to grow aware of you, your environment, your situations, and all of the above: spirit, mind, heart, body. Because you can't lead what you cannot see. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's already there. The moment you recognize where avoidance has been operating, you reclaim your power to choose differently. Either you do or you don't. It's a choice. It really is a choice. And what is the ROI, return on investment, of self-leadership? Fewer reactive decisions, stronger self-led teams, and cultures that don't wait to be motivated. Isn't that cool? I love working with individuals who are self-motivated, who don't need a carrot or a candy cane to do their best and be their best. And joy awareness changes organizations. It's not a perk, it's actually a conscious decision. And joy supports others in gaining knowledge, skills, tools, and strategies to embody joy. That's why I love what I do. That's why I do these videos, to actually support you and your organizations. When organizations invest in their employees, communication improves, ownership increases, and alignment becomes possible. Why? Because when you understand the embodiment of joy and you have the joy mindset, you change. You're different. You acknowledge that you are a leader, you have free will, you have personal agency, and that pure acknowledgement changes everything. You don't blame people anymore for where you're at. You actually make change. Here's the last part. This is a reflection. It's for you, awareness check. Where am I currently avoiding a difficult decision or a conversation? Your choice point. What would change if I chose to address this today? And your next action step is, what's the smallest choice I can make right now that aligns with who I want to be as a leader? Because leadership begins with self-leadership. Joy is your free will. Journey options you choose. Thank you for your time. Remember that your next step is to choose joy. Take the joy mindset assessment. It's on joyoptions.org. It's an assessment that gives you the opportunity to evaluate where you are in your mindset in the moment. It's not stagnant, it's in the moment. And based on that, there's 4 mindsets. There's the restricted mindset, the awakening mindset, the natural mindset, and the joy mindset. So depending on where you fall in the joy success quadrant, there are specific skills, strategies, and knowledge that you can gain that will help you to embody the joy mindset and to ultimately, consistently sustain joy. So thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best. Remember to like, follow, and share, especially share if you found this information to be beneficial and powerful for you.